Donald McMullen?
We're going to record the public speakers.
Donald McMullen? Please move to the next speaker then, or yes, speaker is Jamie Garcia. Hi, can you all hear me? Yes. Okay, so I wanted to address the handbook that was released, and this will just be the first of how the Commission will hear from the community in regards to data-informed policing. So I think we need to get away from just renaming old tools and just thinking by renaming something, the actual structural impact, the structural violence will be decreased. And this narrative that was being weaved throughout the handbook about LAPD actually driving down crime, about the impact of these different programs. I mean, even starting in 2009 and acting like this was the beginning of our experiment, and our experiment was amazing, completely erasing the fact that the community exposed the human rights violations that were occurring. But I'm going to focus just on the CSOCs again, because I think it's very interesting how Moore and his crew tried to retell the story of the impact of the CSOC. So if we focus in on March to October 2016, and again, I'm going to read the statistics, 19 people were killed, right? 13 people during that time period, 8 related to CSOC and gang suppression. And we're not hearing anything about that. We're not hearing about how the laser zones possibly impacted that, how many of them were chronic offenders, and even talking about the exposure of this of laser and predpol was because the community brought it to the attention. But Moore wants to paint this picture that, oh, you know, we just readjusted things because the community wants something more central, but that wasn't the case. We were exposing structural violence, and that completely gets erased, just as Hamid Khan was speaking about how we dismantled predpol and how we dismantled laser. So this isn't the end. We'll be coming back. We'll be talking about PTEP, and I'm very interested about these NEAs. Very interested about how you're glossing over broken windows policing once again. We'll be back. The next speaker is Audrey George. I want to uplift again and amplify demands that you've already heard about, but that must be said again and again and again until we see results. First of all, the Chief Moore fired the officers who killed Grishario Mack and Albert Ramon Dorsey, and who were found to be out of policy, but have not received the discipline that they should. Immediately cease use of gang databases. Disband the Metro Division, which has been found to be beyond corrupt. Release the names of the officers who falsely entered community members into gang databases. Widely promote rescheduled topic-specific meetings, such as the one on gang databases where Stop LAPD Spying Coalition and YJC were slated to present truthful and factual issues to the community and the PC. We look forward to those new meetings. And end all quality of life stops and citations now. Stay away from the communities you typically target for over-policing, and start practicing social distancing in interactions with the public at all times. That's all. Next speaker, Tina Miola.
Yes, I'm here. I first want to express my gratitude to the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition, because they really are the true oversight for the LAPD. It's a shame that this board comes nowhere near close to being that. And I'm super grateful that they continue to show up and do the work that this commission clearly does not do. There continue to be arrests made of peaceful protesters in the city over and over again by officers not wearing masks, not practicing social distancing. So when you say arrests are down for low-level offenses 37%, I find it odd that you're still arresting peaceful protesters. I thought we had a whole court case about that last year where the city attorney agreed that we weren't going to continue doing that anymore. We're not going to arrest peaceful protesters, and yet you seem to be doing that even in a time of pandemic. You arrested 2 protesters last week for making noise on a public street corner. So I'm curious about how that fits in with everything that's going on now, or doesn't. I also want to talk about last week's presentation about your hiring practices. And to me, the standards that you've established are directly designed to weed out people of color and impoverished people. What stuck out to me, your financial standards alone, and the fact that maybe you would start to lighten up on whether or not somebody, bounced a check, it just speaks to me that you will end up with a police force full of white, class, privileged people. And that's what you're going for, and probably why you continue to advertise on Breitbart for those jobs. But that really stuck out to me, and unfortunately I couldn't stick around to the end of the meeting to be able to say something about that.
Thank you. The next speaker is She. Hello? Yes, go ahead. Yes, first off, I'd like to also call for the firing of officers Martin Mobley and Ryan Lee in the murder of Grishario Mack that was also found out of policy in the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Mall. I'd also like to uplift Waukesha Wilson, who was killed in the LA County Jail, and that detention officer Rihanna Bratton was fired but never prosecuted. I'd just like to read a quick statement from an article. The Los Angeles Police Department fired one of its detention officers following the controversial in-custody death of Waukesha Wilson. The detention officer, Rihanna Bratton, was discharged last year on allegations she failed to render immediate medical aid when Wilson was found unresponsive at LAPD jail in downtown LA, according to police internal affairs and city personal documents obtained by NBC4. The LAPD also led accusations that Bratton improperly isolated Wilson in an upstairs individual cell the day of Wilson's death in violation of jail policies. That allegation was dismissed by the city during termination proceedings through the LAPD, even though the LAPD sought to reinstate it. The Internal Affairs file also revealed that Bratton had been suspended for 22 days, 6 months before Wilson's death, on allegations she failed to check on the welfare of inmates' house on second-floor cells, like the one Wilson was in on the day she died. The LAPD declined to respond to requests for comment. This was an article from April 24th, 2018, and that detention officer was fired, but still has yet been prosecuted. Thank you. And also, lastly, I'd like to say that the meeting needs to be more accessible to the community, times and days. And also, all of them should also be accessible online for people. Thank you. The next speaker is for caller ending in 6667. You are unmuted.
Okay, thank you. This is George Mazzetti, former Director of Policy at the Congress of Racial Equality of California. I agree with almost everything most of the previous speakers have said. We're going to hold you all accountable to law. I'm going to read your May 16, 2018 Chief Beck letter to me. An investigation into your complaint that was reported on November 7, 2016 regarding the conduct of employees of the LAPD has been completed. You're 2 years late with your report of the complaint number, people. The investigation has gone through several layers of review, including myself and the Command Internal Staff of Internal Affairs Group. Period. Your allegation the department failed to implement the Internal Affairs Cooperative Agreement, that employees failed to take your complaint against the LAPD, LA School Police Department, and LA USD employees, that members of the LA Police Board Commissioners erased Police Commission meetings audio recordings from the Los Angeles City View website, and that unknown employees denied your right to make telephone calls while in police custody have been classified as non-disciplinary no misconduct. This means that the acts alleged did not rise to the level of misconduct and the named employee's actions were protected by law or found to be consistent with department policy or procedure. So you guys are allowed to kill 31,000 people against a 2003 DOJ agreement, right? Alright? And you allow perjury, right? And you erased the copy of the meeting. Everybody go to my website, fraudbuster.org, and you can see fake and real audio. Alright, people? So we're going to hold you accountable. In the meantime, go take care of business.
You are muted. You are unmuted. Sherwin? You are muted. Zach Sherwin?
I'm here. It takes a second to unmute. Okay, first of all, this commission's continued inability to use Zoom and the technical issues that we're encountering week after week, often resulting in long delays for people who are making time to be on this call, it is remarkable. I'm on many Zoom meetings these days, and this is the place that I encounter this, and it's like kind of reliable at this point. So, I don't know, figure it out. I've heard in previous meetings you say that like we're testing it on the public and we're still getting there. It's like past the time that it should be there. These meetings are long, and you're being very exacting about cutting off public comment at the 2-minute mark. Now that you have the power to do that with the touch of a button, you're not taking late comments. The window of time that is open for people to sign up for things like public comment is very brief. I think the input that you're getting from community is the perhaps only valuable part of this meeting, and I encourage you to take more time and allow more space for those comments to be heard. Commissioner Decker, you said earlier that there were many items of concern raised by the community, and that instead of, to use your words, taking a moment to address those concerns, you would wait for that to happen in weeks to come. Life's short, and the future's uncertain, and what if people who are on this call who are thinking about those things aren't able to attend future meetings? I think that's a missed opportunity for you to have said whatever was on your mind and to respond to the community, which again is what this is all about. Commissioner Soboroff, your repeated use of the word "we" last week to describe the LAPD was unsurprising, but as always dismaying. You're supposed to be a board of oversight and accountability. You're a joke. Resign from this commission. It's shameful. Finally, for the second week that I've noticed it, and presumably for longer than that, your agenda says, and I'm quoting here, support materials relative to open session agenda items are available for public inspection in the police administration building. I assume that's not true because of social distancing, but if it is the case, take it off the agenda.
Thank you. The next speaker is Wayne from Encino.
Okay, can I be heard now? Can you hear me? I'm calling from the bunker. I'll take that as a yes, but don't be there. First of all, thank you, Mr. T. Banks, for turning informant on the commission and ratting out Eileen Decker for breaking the quorum. Well done. Now, Mr. T-Bang today has a confession to make also. He got a 5-year TRO when he could only get a 3-year TRO against Mr. Armando Herman. As well, he's been recorded stating that LAPD detectives were giving Mr. Herman some harassment and threatening to arrest him, quote unquote, just to scare him a little bit, unquote. Yes, Mr. Sober, itch the back of your neck. That's right. Also, I was on public comment on the previous item, and I noticed she skipped over me. Well, I have good news. Remember last week, I had some folks from the hood. I was at my office when you did what you did, and you threatened me under color of authority for speaking at meetings to remain anonymous. The FBI is monitoring this meeting. They did last week, and they also know that Eileen Decker worked with defendants in United States versus the Calderon brothers to turn a 318-year potential sentence into an 8-month get-out-of-jail slap.
You've gone so far.
I'm talking about the general public comment, lady. This is General
Disabled.
This is General.
The next speaker. Thank you.
The next speaker is Melina Abdullah.
We recorded you, Wayne.
So I'm glad to be called upon. I want to echo what Zach Sherwin said, that the time that you called for public comment was less than 20 seconds. So if you weren't sitting right by your computer, it was impossible to raise your hand in time to make public comment. And you all continue to really mute, pun intended, public comment. There were 2 times last week when I had my hand up in time during the window and I was not called upon. I assume that this is one of your technical issues and that you need further training and that there's not something more malicious going on, but you should make sure that the voice of the public is heard. I want to echo the demand to fire Robles and Lee in the name of Roshario Mack. I want to also look at the budget. I want to remind y'all that there are institutions that were forced to give back unjust allocations. LAPD is the only entity that allocation has gone up under the mayor's current proposal. We want to urge you as the oversight body to urge LAPD to reject some of that allocation. We know that what's happening right now in the current crisis cannot be solved by police. In fact, it's exacerbated by police. What we need is mental health providers. We need food distribution centers free of police. We need the things that community needs, not additional harassment, which has been demonstrated in the recent LA Times article to be applied unevenly, to be engaging in unjust enforcement practices in Black communities. And then I want to ask if you all have read the Black Los Angeles Community Demands, available at tinyurl.com/Black LA Demands. More than 50 organizations from the NAACP to Black Lives Matter uplifted demands in order to address this crisis and its disproportionate impact on the Black community.
Yep. And the final speaker is Adam Smith.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I just want to echo most of what's already been said. Okay. Someone just sigh? Sorry. Checking your mic, Eileen. So, yeah, the 20 seconds thing to sign up for public comment is pretty ridiculous. If we go to a quote-unquote normal meeting, we generally have 2 hours to sign up for public comment. And, you know, a lot of us, as maybe people can imagine, are juggling more than just staring at you guys for hours on end. We have kids to wipe, to make quesadillas for, so we might not be at the computer for a minute, and then we miss public comment after sitting here for a while, so I'm happy that I was able to raise my hands, but maybe you should keep that in mind. Chief, I think you really need to, never mind. Commissioners, I think you really need to start asking more questions about illegally trafficked guns by the officers that you're supposed to be oversighting. One last thing. I miss my friends on this call, like Beck and Gina and Mama Paula.
Madam Secretary, this is outside the jurisdiction of the board. Could you move on to the next speaker? Unless this was the last speaker, ma'am. Was that the last public speaker, ma'am?
Yes.
Right.
Outside the jurisdiction of the board.
Is there anyone who's raised their hand on closed session items? And let's close the queue.
We have 2. We have Wayne from Encino.
The only matter that's relevant, sir, is...
Okay, I'm talking about Adam Ball, the closed session item regarding an OIS. Jay Fernandez was
minding own business. One Lieutenant Uno, one Sergeant Uno, and 3 police officers freeze. And that's right, I know, Mr. Bonner, I know. You gotta go back there and figure out what happened. You know what happened? I don't know what happened. Chief Boy, you know what happened. And I just want to close my closing remarks. Just bar all these attorneys, fire them from the goddamn department. And if the sergeant, lieutenant, police officer will repeat the following statement, I will support their nomination to return back to duty. Eileen Decker looks like a bag lady in that outfit. Repeat after me.
Again, sir,
Eileen Decker looks like a bag lady.
Any topic to do with the work on this commission. The next speaker, please, Madam Secretary.
The next speaker is Gina Viola.
I want to point out that you gave, I don't even think it was a full 5 seconds for us to raise our hand for this issue. So since we are forced to raise our hand in between issues in this new world of Zoom Live, you really need to give us a few more seconds to be able to make that happen. I'm sure there were other people that wanted to speak to closed session. I don't know who's being discussed today in closed session, but I want to echo that determinations that you make in closed session, like, finding officers out of policy, what then gets done about officers who are found out of policy? Because it seems to me that Ryan Lee and Martin Robles, nothing has been done. Mr. Silver, you can shake your head all you like. I am bringing up that what you do in closed session and the determinations that you make in closed session, how do they play out in real life? If you do, Albert Ramon Dorsey, that officer was found out of policy. That shot and killed him. What is done about it? Just finding them out of policy, what goes on beyond that? How do you then enforce with the chief of police, with the LAPD, that actions are taken to keep the city safe? These closed sessions that you have, they trouble me greatly. They really, really do. Because even if you come up with what we as the public might think would be the correct analysis, and certainly in the instance of Grishario Mack, it absolutely was, nothing gets done beyond that with that determination. So I would like to see those closed session items actually seen in public for transparency's sake, because I think that's a big part of the problem.
And we have no other comment, correct?
Okay, thank you, Madam Secretary. I neglected after general public comment just to mention, as I did last week, that next week we are beginning the process on the counting database and having community groups speak. And someone had brought that up. All right, with that, Madam Secretary, we'll move to closed session.
Thank you. The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss items number 4A in accordance with Government Code 54957.